East Midlands countryside drifts by at the start of the final leg of my waterways journey through the Midlands. That looks a bit too strenuous for me. I've come to appreciate the pleasures of pottering along and letting the world go by.
Nice part of the world, Ron.
Yes, Normanton.
Ron Healy's been skippering my narrowboat since we left Gloucester docks. We've put more than 200 miles behind us now. This is one of the most popular areas for recreation in the Midlands. It's the height of the summer, the river is at its busiest. But the wide open spaces mean that you're always well away from the crowds. But I think our mascot Rags is finding it all a bit too quiet.
We've left the rather narrow confines of the canals for the wide open spaces of the rivers. We're now in Leicestershire and this is the River Suir. We've left Barrow-on-Suir and we're heading north towards Loughborough in search of some more interesting tales and some fascinating characters. Now, one thing, Ron, that amazes me about this river is that the water seems very brackish, very dark.
Yes, it discoloured from about 3 locks back there. Suddenly the river turns blackish. I don't know why. It's probably something to do with the land and the soil underneath at the bottom of the river.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it because I've seen the fishermen pulling out the fish. The wildlife's fine. I mean, the plants here seem to be in abundance. It looks quite healthy, in fact.
You go for a few miles and then it gradually clears and gets back to its natural colour again, clear water.
This is Loughborough, and at the foundry of John Taylor and Company, they've been ringing the changes, quite literally, for years. Taylor bells sound from church towers the length and breadth of Britain, as well as in Australia, New Zealand and the United States. New bells are cast from a mixture of copper and tin. The percentages of each are a closely guarded secret. Many old bells are brought here to be retuned. They do this by cutting metal from the inside to lower the pitch. If too much metal is taken off, the bell's ruined. A very expensive mistake. The biggest bell they've made weighs 17 tons and hangs in St Paul's Cathedral. Alan Berry's managing director.
Taylor bells are very, very distinctive from the quality of their sound. And it's not everybody's choice to have Taylor bells, because they perhaps want something that's not quite as mellow, quite as bright or whatever. But if you want the Taylor sound, then you come to Taylor's.
Is it a continuous process making a new bell? Can you say, well, it'll take us 6 weeks or 7 months to make it?
No, bells start off their life in the tuning shop where they design the profile for a particular bell. And then it goes into the foundry where the core and the case are made. But that then has to go into a drying stove, and that process takes some time. And so it isn't a question of starting on Monday morning and ending up at the end of the week with a bell. It could quite well be 3 or 4 weeks or even longer if it was a particularly large bell. A bell, something like 10 tons, may well take us 3 months to make.
Has bell design changed over the years?
Oh yes, if you look at some of the very old bells from 1100, 1200, they were very tall. The development was to make them very, very squat in about the 1800s, the early 1800s. But then when we got to the position of having them being able to get them perfectly in tune, the bell went slightly taller again. So if you see some of the very old bells which are very long and trumpet-shaped, then that is a fair indication that they are very old, unless, of course, they're a copy. In the old days, the bell founder was originally an itinerant person. He would just knock on the vicarage door and ask if they wanted any extra bells. And he would make his furnace in the churchyard. And that's why when you go round some of the old villages, you would get Bell Lane and Bell Field, where the bells would have been cast. Quite often, the plumber was the person who would make bells as well. But nowadays, of course, with the Industrial Revolution, taking advantage of all